Don't talk about returns to shareholders, please, in your purpose statement. Nobody cares. That's not motivating to your team. What's the impact you want people to feel? What's the relationship you want to have with them? How do you want them to feel about you? What impact is it that you want to have in the world? It's got to connect with emotions, your customers' emotions, your people's emotions. Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of 10-Minute Thursdays, where I unpack some of the key concepts and frameworks that are part of and underpin developing a good and compelling growth strategy for founders. But I'm going to do it in a practical way so that you can look at your current approach and see if there's something that you can tweak or refine to get better outcomes for your business. All the topics we cover in this series come from the ScaleUps Roadmap program, which is an exclusive cohort-based program for first-time founders to help them develop a 3-year strategy and execution plan that's going to enhance their growth rates, profitability, valuation, and exit options. It'll be launching in 2023, so if you'd like to know more, you can drop me an email at questions@scaleupspodcast.com, or you can hit me up on the socials on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, use @ScaleUps Podcast, and you will find me everywhere. Once we have a website page ready for you to leave your email, we will let you know what that is. So in today's episode, we are talking about developing purpose. I've been working with a bunch of founders on purpose recently, and people often find this actually pretty tough. Some founders find it very easy because they got into their industry because they've got a real burning desire to change something or transform something or have a big impact in the world, and that was actually the inception of their business. But there are plenty of other founders who just 10 or 20 or more years in their industry realized they could do it better than some of the companies they've been working for, started their own business, and actually really didn't have much more of a purpose than creating wealth for their family or having a more interesting job and being able to make more decisions. And that's fine to a certain point, but once you've got 10 or 20 or 30 people, all of a sudden you start to realize that actually people really care. It really matters both to your people and to your customers. So they're starting to develop it. So why does having a purpose matter? Well, having a purpose matters because of a few things. One, it's part of your employee value proposition. And what do I mean by that? Well, great people, when you're trying to recruit them, have choice. Let's be real. Whether you're trying to recruit them or they're already in your business, those people have choice. And actually, some of the data I've looked at suggests that 4 out of 5 people think business should be more about than making money. It should be more than that. And the great resignation, if you think about the last couple of years, is not just people saying, oh, I can work from home, I want to do a different job. It's also people saying, I want more from my life. I want to be able to find the ability to contribute to something meaningful in my work, not necessarily just outside work. If you think back a while ago, work was kind of just a vehicle for making money and people were often chasing their purpose outside work. But people want to have a vehicle for creating some positive impact and using their skills to participate and contribute to something. Second is about positioning. I did a recent episode with John James, which you can have a listen to on the ScaleUps podcast. And your purpose is actually part of the positioning of your brand in the mind of your customer about who you are and why they should want to do business with you versus somebody else. So how do you go about developing a purpose? Well, I'm going to give you 4 questions that you can ask yourself to help. Question 1, why do you exist and why should anyone care? That comes from Simon Sinek, who did a really famous TED Talk. I don't know how many millions of views, but many tens of millions of views, I believe. But he's got a few concepts in there that I think that are really valuable. People do business with people who believe what they believe. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. If you think about your business as a onion with 3 layers. At the core of it is actually why you do what you do, then how you do what you do, and then finally what you do. And your people spend all their time doing the what in a particular way, which is the how. But if you can't contextualize it for them with why, it becomes less meaningful. And people want to contribute to something, as I said before. You need to give them some insight into what drives you and why they would care. The second question is about your convictions. What got you into business in the first place? What annoyed you? What problems were you trying to solve? What impact did you want to have? What experience did you want to create for people? How did you want to feel? What underlying philosophies or principles have shaped how you do business? Those are your convictions. Question 3 is about differentiation. What differentiates you? Question 4 is about your customers. Who are your customers and what really matters to them or what do they value? And who do they want you to be for them? And who do you want to be for them? Because sometimes those are different things. So when you ask yourself those 4 questions, it starts to elicit some of the foundations as to what your purpose might be about. It's not necessarily an answer to any single one of them. It's the collective thinking that starts to get you in the space. And we're going to give you some examples today of what good and bad purpose sounds like, but those can be 4 questions that get you started. I'm going to give you 5 tips for writing your purpose. Tip number 1, keep it short and sweet. Long and rambling does not work. I saw one when I was researching this topic that was 279 words long. Wow, not awesome. Tip number 2, personality. You got to let your company shine through. Your sort of authentic personality of often you and the way that your company speaks. Get rid of buzzwords and jargon and fact sheet sort of language. It's got to reflect your culture, how you speak, your brand's tone of voice, how people experience you. That's the language you want to hear turn up in a purpose. Tip number 3, it has to be specific to you, which means if you were to take your name out of it and stick your competitor's name in it, would it still be fair and reasonable? Like it would still apply to them because they've just said, we're really high quality and we love our customers and we want to be the best in the industry, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It's just not specific enough to your company. If you could take your name out and stick somebody else's name in and it still made sense for them. Tip number 4, it's got to be emotional. I don't mean dripping in emotion, but it's got to connect with emotions, your customers' emotions, your people's emotions. Don't talk about returns to shareholders, please, in your purpose statement. Nobody cares. Okay, maybe the shareholders care, but that's not enough for a purpose. That's not motivating to your team. What's the impact you want people to feel? What's the relationship you want to have with them? How do you want them to feel about you? None of that's coming through in your purpose. You're not hitting on any emotional strands or tones, and that's really important. Okay, tip number 5, it reflects your ambition. So who do you want to be and for whom? What impact is it that you want to have in the world or in your market? Are you trying to change your market? Are you trying to redefine the business model or the way customers get served? What would people care about that's authentically you, that reflects the thing that you're moving towards, the thing that's creating momentum in your business? If your purpose doesn't have a sense of moving towards something, like it's static, like we are the leader in blah, 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 because we're great, there's nothing to move towards in that. But something that you're actually going after that reflects your ambition is a strong part of a purpose that's well written. Okay, let's talk about some examples. First, let's do some bad examples. Then we'll do some examples I think are better. Example number 1, KFC. Their purpose is to sell food in a fast, friendly environment that appeals to the price-conscious, health-minded consumer. Well, that just sounds like bollocks. I mean, is that where price-conscious consumers are really eating out? I'm not sure that's believable, but I'm certainly sure that it's not where health-conscious consumers are eating out. That's absolutely unbelievable. And they're probably one of the biggest contributors to type 2 diabetes in any country in which they operate. So I'm not really sure they've got their customer well understood in their purpose. And that lack of believability doesn't make that a good example. Example number 2, Wesfarmers. To provide a satisfactory return to shareholders. That's their purpose. Sorry, Wesfarmers. That's about as dry and uninspiring as anybody could get. I can just totally imagine your people jumping out of bed in the morning to provide a return to shareholders. That's incredibly motivating. Okay, example number 3. MGM Resorts International is the leader in entertainment and hospitality, a diverse collection of extraordinary people, distinctive brands, and best-in-class destinations. Well, MGM, that's just a really flattering self-description. It doesn't say what you aspire to be. It just says why you think you're great. And that's quite different, I think, to purpose that's going to get your team out of bed in the morning and also that's going to make you, connect to your customers at any kind of heart level. Okay, so now let's do some examples of ones that I think are written better. And I don't think there's any perfect purpose. It's not about perfection, but it's actually about all those ingredients I talked about before. So the first one is Tesla. Their purpose is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. Now that's a big goal. That's a very strong move towards. You can hear it straight away that they're accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. That is a big, motivating, purpose-driven, positive contribution to the world and to the markets in which they work. It's impact-focused. It reflects their ambitions. You can see that playing out from an authenticity point of view in their approach to R&D and product development and business models. And you can imagine the sense of purpose that inspires in their team because they're contributing something that's much bigger than them. Okay, example number 2 is TED. You've probably heard of TED Talks, and if you listen to the Simon Sinek one or you watch the Simon Sinek one I was talking about before, that was one of the early TED Talks that really just went absolutely viral on purpose and developing your why. TED's purpose is spread ideas, full stop. Absolutely wins the award for brevity and also says what it does, but it also creates momentum because it's an action word, spread ideas. So the core focus of their entire business model, it's about the quality ideas. If you want to spread it, it also then becomes about the quality of speakers, the quality of production, the ease of sharing, the ease of spreading. All of that actually really fits nicely in with the concept of spread ideas. And I think that's quite well written. Okay, example number 3, Prezi. Some may have used Prezi, some may never have heard of Prezi. But if you've ever been looking for an alternative to PowerPoint, you may have stumbled across Prezi in your past. Their purpose is to reinvent how people share knowledge, tell stories, and inspire their audiences to act. These guys are really competing against Microsoft PowerPoint and others, but mostly PowerPoint as the sort of default presentation tool. And the concept of reinventing how people share knowledge, is about differentiation. They're kind of saying, hey, we're not a platform that does everything. We're really focused on how people share knowledge, tell stories, and create inspiration for action. And then drives the way they build their product. And that sense of innovation then really becomes required and part of the fabric of who they are because they call that out as part of their purpose. And if you think about that in comparison to PowerPoint, which really is a great tool, but also hasn't evolved very much, I think it really pushes the Prezi team to continue to try to evolve and elevate the differentiation they have between themselves and PowerPoint. Okay, example number 4, which comes out of Australia, is Mirvac Group. Their purpose is reimagine urban life. And I really like this, reimagine urban life. I like this because they haven't just said build developments. They've said reimagine urban life. And I like it because it sets a standard that their team has to rise to. If they give a vanilla out-of-the-box proposal to building a township or setting up some kind of commercial, some special precinct, it's setting a higher standard than that because they're actually having to say, well, is this representative of reimagining what urban life should be like? It drives that sort of positive pressure on the quality of thinking, the quality of the work, and therefore also attracts a certain kind of customer that actually values something different and is probably willing to pay a premium for that. It's disruptive. You know that when you hear that, they're coming for you. If you're vanilla, they're going to be coming with something far more innovative. It's a lot that's captured out in those 3 words. And I don't know if it plays out in real life, but as a purpose statement, if it's authentic in the way that they actually do their work, I think it's pretty solid. Okay, so our 5th and final example is Horizon Holdings. Apology if it's actually pronounced Horizon. I never know whether it should be Horizon or Horizon, but let's call it Horizon. Horizon Holdings to grow regional Australia by delivering bulk commodities to the world. The bulk commodities to the world, okay, it's not that exciting, but I love the regional Australia focus. The people in regional Australia are often craving recognition and growth and support, and someone really needs to care for them. They often feel like a last minute consideration when it comes to, planning and large companies and so on. So they're really clear about what they do. We deliver bulk commodities to the world. It's not exciting, but they're not trying to jazz it up. But the reason why is to grow the prosperity of regional Australia. And that's very meaningful to the customer. And I expect to the team. I think it's actually got real heart for a business that probably could be considered a bit boring in the absence of that heart. Okay, so in summary, when you're building your purpose, if you're a bit stuck and yours needs a refresh, 4 questions that you can ask yourself. Why do I exist and why should people care? What underlying philosophies or principles have shaped how I do business? What differentiates me? And who are my customers and what really matters to them? And then you can use these 5 principles to make it more impactful. Keep it short and sweet. Make sure it's got personality, your personality in there. 3rd, make sure it's specific to you. It's not so general you could just swap in a competitor's name. 4, make sure it's got some level of emotion in it. It's tugging on some heartstrings for your team and for your customers. And 5thly, that it reflects your ambition. It's got to move towards nature as opposed to static nature. Okay, thanks very much, folks. I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you got some value from that. Maybe a time to develop your purpose if you haven't got one, or just to have a look at your purpose at the moment and see if it actually meets those criteria. Maybe it needs a refresh. Hit us up on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, on @ScaleUps Podcast. Tell us what your newly refined purpose is, or give us some examples if you've heard some awful ones. I would love to have a laugh with my team, and maybe we can share those on a future show. Or if you'd like to learn more about the ScaleUps Roadmap program because you'd like to develop a more compelling and impactful 3-year strategy and execution plan for your business, drop us a line at questions@scaleupspodcast.com or hit us up on the socials. Thanks so much.